Hi, Dr. Warrick here, and welcome to my podcast and videocast station. I'm delighted today to actually have Kirk Huntsman with me. It's actually taken a while to line this up, so I'm super excited. Kirk's a businessman, an entrepreneur who's been in the space for over 30 years, and he's linked with Vivos Therapeutics, which develop devices for obstructive sleep apnea, which is hugely important. And I'm really very happy to have the chance, very privileged to have the chance to have someone from the other side of the world, expert in the space, talk about this really, really important issue. G'day, Kirk. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Appreciate being here, Warwick. I'm looking forward to this.
Look, I do too. I think obstructive sleep apnea is a massive issue. I keep up with the general literature as best I can, but I had some stuff come across my desk the other day which really focused my mind to the importance of, and it was talking about cognitive decline with obstructive sleep apnea. Now, I know
Right.
you're a businessman, but I know that you're behind a company to really try and make a difference. In your own sort of experience, what are the things that you really think obstructive sleep apnea is driving, and why should we be aware of it?
Well, let's talk a little bit about the prevalence of this disorder and sort of what it does. The current estimates are that over 1 billion people on planet Earth have obstructive sleep apnea or a related sleep disorder. When you think about that, that's 1 out of every 8. And so we're talking about men, women, children. A lot of people don't realize that obstructive sleep apnea can affect very young children all the way up to very old people. So it spans the course of a lifetime. It transcends ethnicities and national boundaries. It's not just a disease that afflicts, it used to be that it was thought there was a stereotype around obstructive sleep apnea that it only afflicted overweight males in their 40s or some such, right? But we now know obstructive sleep apnea is a condition that can affect anyone at any stage of their life. And it begins at the earliest stages of life and actually can go on, if not diagnosed or corrected early on in life. It can actually plague someone throughout their entire life and manifest with more and more severity as we age. And so, yeah, this is a big deal, and you were very right to call it a really big deal, because what we know about sleep apnea today that we didn't know even 10 or 15 years ago is that this disorder will actually take years off of our lives, especially in its moderate to severe range. And so when you talk about moderate to severe sleep apnea, you're really talking about something that has the ability to not only end our lives early, but also make our lives more complicated, more debilitated, I mean, with people the reason we came up with the name Vivos for our company is because people with sleep apnea, during the daytime, they're never fully awake. And in the nighttime, they're never fully asleep. And so they're never fully alive. And vivos is a sort of a quasi-Latin
Test
Spanish
tube.
term that means to be alive, right? The living. And we
Yep.
want people to breathe fully and cleanly so that they can be fully alive. And so what our company's mission is to bring an awareness to the world about this disorder and to actually bring products to the market which actually are shown and proven to actually address some of these disorders at their root cause. So we actually have a line of oral appliances that help remodel a human airway non-surgically, opening it up so that people can breathe and sleep without having it collapse. So that's what we do.
Okay, fantastic. Well, look, I guess one of the really important things, if we're talking about 1 in 8 people, what I'd be really interested in you sharing is some of the things that those people listening to this should be on the lookout for, either in themselves or their loved ones, which could be a sign that they're suffering or they're family or friends are suffering poor sleep. And a quick story, when I was a trainee many years ago, I worked on a sleep apnea unit where they bring people in
Yeah.
for testing. And I remember clearly talking to this, he was a big man actually, and he did probably fit the stereotype because he was carrying extra weight. And
Yeah.
as I spoke with him, I said, how did he end up in the unit? And he said he used to find that he would get sleepy and lean into corners and have a quick nap during the day. As he was doing this at a party, someone came up to him and said, oh, I had a brother who did that and he had sleep apnea. You should go and get checked. So this guy, he was literally standing on his feet, having a quick nap. He admitted that he'd look at a wall and think, oh, that looks comfortable. Nuzzle in there for a moment, have a sleep. So that's extreme. But what are the things that people should be looking for, Kirk, if they're going to try and evaluate their
But
sleep?
I think you touched on one of them, right? The excessive daytime drowsiness is a primary condition associated with sleep apnea. So we're looking at people who, when they wake up in the morning, they don't feel refreshed. The sheets may be all over the place because they've had some restless leg syndrome throughout the night. They probably had interrupted sleep if their bed partner has heard them snoring. Snoring is associated with sleep. We know that in men, a neck size of, in the United States, it's inches, 17 inches. You'll have to translate that into centimeters, but 17-inch necks are in men are associated with a 96% correlation with sleep apnea, and 14 inches in females. So and again, those are correlations to look for. If people have, and this is where my firm's products come into play, but if they have a narrow upper palate, so if they have a high peaked palate that extends up into their nasal passages, rather than a Roman arch up there. So we're supposed to have a Roman arch, and our tongue is supposed to be the scaffolding that holds it up. But if the tongue is either because of a short frenulum or some other condition where that tongue is not up and forward to hold that up there, the dental arch will collapse and it will impede on the nasal breathing capabilities and capacity of the patient. So we have conditions where if you have crooked, crowded teeth with a narrow upper palate, if you have tori, which are bony protrusions in the lower or upper palate, if you have, there's a number of things here that if you have eyes that are not level, or you have if your posture's off, you probably have a condition associated with obstructive sleep apnea. And today, what's really important for your listeners to understand here is that today it is so easy for a test to be done. It used to be they had to go to a sleep clinic and spend the night and get a polysomnogram and all that. Nowadays, it can be done in the comfort of their home with a home sleep test device. And then once you get that sleep test read by a properly qualified physician, then you can decide what kind of treatment you want. And, 45 years ago, out of Australia came the CPAP. And so, love it or hate it, you guys delivered to the world what has been the gold standard for obstructive sleep apnea. I believe the guy's name was Dr. Sullivan, and he came forward with this CPAP device, and he showed the world how to really at least give patients an opportunity to manage this condition. What our firm has done is develop products that actually seek to resolve the condition. So rather than have a CPAP device every night for the rest of your life, you go into a treatment with our devices, our oral appliances, and within 9 to 12 months, you've got a big new set of pipes that we've created by repositioning some of the tissues that define the airway. And so there's new technologies out there that give patients options rather than just sort of everybody gets a CPAP. And that's been that's been really the reality for OSA patients for the last 40 years.
So that remodeling of the upper airway, and we'll digress on this for a moment because I want to come back to diagnosis in a very simplistic
Sure.
way. But the remodeling of the upper airway that you're talking about that your devices are able to do, is that guided generally by a dentist or someone who's got experience in upper airway anatomy? Is that how that works?
Yeah, it would be a specially trained dentist who could do this. And you asked me earlier if there were some dentists in Australia that would serve the needs. Yeah, and I probably don't know if you want me to mention their names or not, but there's dentists in, uh, yeah,
Probably the easiest way is there on your website, on the Vivos Therapeutics website, is there a link to dentists who
no,
are,
we really don't. We don't put that out there because we had some problems with some people misusing and abusing that
you
service.
know,
So, but if they will call our help desk number on our
yep,
website, our
yep.
people will be able to refer them to the qualified practitioners in mainly we might have one in Perth, but I think most of them are in Sydney or Melbourne.
Okay, fantastic. So anyone listening who thinks this may be an important intervention for them and you want to explore it, check out the Vivos, Vivos Therapeutics website. As Kirk says, give them a call. There was probably even an email, I'm imagining, and just
Yeah.
ask, could you please be directed to someone in the area who might be able to give an assessment and an appraisal. And that's fantastic. Look, jumping back to your comment about the diagnosis, are we seeing things like Apple phones and Android phones with sleep regulating or sleep assessment apps being helpful at all in diagnosing obstructive sleep apnea, or are they still not accurate enough?
I think the answer to that is absolutely yes. For what they're able to do, they're great screening devices. So
Mm,
they're not necessarily the data that comes out of them is not necessarily diagnostic grade or not diagnostic quality yet. But what they are great at are two things: screening for this condition and monitoring whether you're relatively better or worse as you go along. So I think they serve a purpose, a very important purpose, and they point you to the need for further evaluation. But some of these home sleep tests now are actually really highly accurate. The physicians can gain all the information that in most cases, all the information they need to render a diagnosis, and then you can decide what sort of pathway you want to go down for treatment.
So one of my experience with obstructive sleep apnea, obviously I told you I worked in a sleep unit many years ago as part of a respiratory rotation, and I've not
Sure.
had a lot to do with it since, but my referrals these days have gone to respiratory physicians.
Yeah.
Is I'm getting the sense that dentists, particularly with the ability to use the sort of devices that Vivos are producing, dentists with the right expertise could be the solution for many of these individuals with OSA. Would that be a fair assessment?
I think that's a fair assessment. I would say this. I think if you're going to a dentist to get access to this technology, which it is mediated through an oral appliance device, if you're going to go to a dentist, make sure that you are going to a dentist that has some good experience, has done lots of these cases, and also go under the care of a physician as well. So I would hesitate. There are a lot of especially in the dental field, there are a lot of guys that just they don't take the time to really do their education. They don't really understand all of the different complexities that associate with this disorder, and they may just have a simplified view of the world where they just think that they can do a quick test and then plug and play their little appliance and sort of wash their hands of it. That is really not what needs to be done here. This is a complex disorder. It's a life-threatening disorder in many cases. It's certainly a very debilitating disorder, and you really want to have the benefit of experience and knowledge when you go into this. And having the medical dental team working with you, I think, is really important to emphasize.
Yeah, that's really valuable insight, actually, Kirk. So for those listening, and I know from my own experience, there's many people who get frustrated with the CPAP, the
Yeah.
continuous positive airway pressure device. Not only does the patient find it frustrating, but so does their spouse because they get air blown in their face. It might be a conversation with your respiratory physician, um, and in combination with a dentist sort of skilled up in this area. So we might get towards wrapping this up, Kirk. Was there anything in particular you wanted to highlight around obstructive sleep apnea? I think the 1 in 8 is fundamental to an
Yeah.
awareness of how broadly it affects the population and also the age from young to old. I think this is
Yeah.
something I wasn't even aware of.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to sort of highlight for our listeners?
Well, yeah, I think it's important for people to know that there's a CPAP route, right? There's the gold standard medical CPAP route. If you go down through the oral appliances, there are two fundamental types of appliances. One is a mandibular advancement device where they literally reposition the lower jaw forward, and you'll basically open your bite just a little bit. That's called a mandibular advancement appliance, or a MA. Sometimes they're called MAD devices, but other times the Vivos technology is the only device in the world that has an FDA clearance to treat severe. So all other devices, all other oral appliances are only cleared for snoring, mild and moderate sleep apnea. Only the Vivos technology, which we call our care devices to rehabilitate and restore the airway, only those devices are cleared for severe. And so I think patients just need to understand that there's choices and options and things that you want to do. If you really want to get well, then you need to probably go upgrade upstream to the rehabilitate restore devices. The most important thing we can leave your listeners with today, though, is the need to get tested. There is, because of the simplicity and the great technology that's out there right now in home testing devices and services, there is no reason as part of your annual physical to not request of your physician a sleep test. They're easy to administer. They're covered by insurance. They should be everybody, whether you're young or old, thin or heavy, male or female, you should get a sleep test to understand how well you're sleeping. And I'll bet, when we do sleep tests here in the U.S., we see about half of the patients that perform a sleep test have sleep apnea. 50% of our population here in America, well, we eat too much, we don't exercise enough. I mean, there's all kinds of things about American society that leads to a higher incidence. But everybody throughout the world that has the resources and the ability to get sleep tested should do so. There's really no excuse any longer to do that. And you know that there are options beyond just wearing that mask. That's the key takeaway I hope everybody leaves with here today.
Yeah. Look, the other key takeaway that I'd like to underline is that prevalence, which is super important, the age range, but the reason why you want to do something about it. This is a condition that infects your entire body. It increases risk of cardiovascular disease, increases risk of raised pulmonary pressures in your lungs. But that data that I saw recently, we're talking about cognitive impairment. So this is going
Oh,
to
yep.
accelerate risk of Alzheimer's disease. Now, even
Early onset dementia,
yeah,
Alzheimer's, all of
yeah,
these neurocognitive, neurobehavioral type things. It's neurobehavioral in children, it's neurocognitive in adults. We start to lose our ability to cognitively process the world around us, and we do that at earlier ages when we have obstructive sleep apnea. So you bring on a great point. The comorbidities, it's not just the obstructive sleep apnea, it's what the obstructive sleep apnea does to make cardiovascular disease worse, diabetes worse, cancer rates go up. There's not a single chronic condition of modern man that is not either caused by or made worse by the presence of obstructive sleep apnea. So this is a major health concern that ought to be addressed by certainly every person in Western society where we have the access to the resources to test and to treat.
100%. And if anyone's thinking that, oh, that wouldn't happen to me, or I won't get those medical consequences from it, it's closely linked to motor vehicle accidents as well. So
Okay.
even if the medical side of it doesn't get you, you may have an accident on the road through micro sleeping and loss of attention. And this is really a condition that if you can sort it out, can have incredible change on people's lives and really make a significant difference, not just to quality of life, but health span. So
Yeah, absolutely.
please, yeah, please don't get caught snoring on the job when it comes to
Yeah,
getting assessed for obstructive sleep apnea.
absolutely.
Kirk, I'm going to thank you enormously for joining me all the way from Denver, Colorado. Been an absolute privilege to finally catch up. I know we've been trying to angle this for ages.
Yeah,
I'm so stoked I've been able to get you on. Kirk Huntsman is CEO of Vivos Therapeutics. Vivos Therapeutics, don't forget, obstructive sleep apnea affects 1 in 8 people. This is enormous, all ages. There are clues, big people, big necks, uh, daytime somnolence. Maybe use your phone, check your phone if you've got an app for sleeping, see if there's a signal there. If your sleep looks perfect, you probably don't need a test. If you have any questions about your sleep, talk to your GP. Like Kirk said, everyone should be screened. And the conversations and the management are complex. Talk to your respiratory physician. If you do seek out support from a dentist and particularly want to improve the airways, find someone who knows what they're doing, reach out to Vivos Technology. Kirk, thank you once more for joining me.
thanks, Warwick. Thanks for having me.
For those listening, I really hope you found this as informative and interesting as I did. This is just such an important area. So I'm so glad to be able to get out there and get people thinking about it to hopefully do something about it. If you've got any queries or questions, drop us a note at info@drwarrickbishop.online. And until next time, I hope you live as well as possible for as long as possible. Take care. Bye for now.